As a college student, I had recently moved into a cheap apartment in a rundown building. The place seemed deserted, except for one more tenant living on the same floor as me. From the first day, there was an air of eeriness about the building, a feeling that I couldn't shake off. The other tenant, Mr. Jacobs, a tall and thin man with a somber demeanor, warned me on the day I moved in, "If you hear footsteps overhead, just ignore them. No one lives on the third floor." I remember feeling puzzled by his words, but I decided not to dwell on it too much. Weeks went by without any disturbances until one stormy night when the wind howled like an anguished spirit outside. I was sitting in my apartment, trying to focus on my textbooks when I heard it for the first time, heavy boots pacing above me. At first, I brushed it off, thinking it must be a leaky pipe or the creaky building settling in the wind. But then something dragged across the floor, a sound so chilling that it froze me in my chair. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing up, a sense of dread creeping over me like a shadow. And then, just as I was about to convince myself that it was all in my head, a whisper, barely audible, slipped through the ceiling vent. "I know you're listening." My heart pounded in my chest, and a cold sweat broke out on my forehead. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move, paralyzed by fear of the unknown. Who or what was up there on the supposedly empty third floor, watching me, speaking to me in that ghostly whisper? The next morning, I tried to rationalize what had happened the previous night. Maybe it was just my imagination playing tricks on me, or maybe Mr. Jacobs was trying to scare me for some unknown reason. But deep down, I knew there was something more to it, something sinister lurking in the shadows of that desolate building. Days turned into weeks, and the strange occurrences became more frequent. I would hear the heavy boots pacing above me almost every night, accompanied by the dragging sound and the unsettling whispers. I tried to ignore them, as Mr. Jacobs had advised me, but it was becoming increasingly difficult to dismiss the growing sense of unease that plagued me. One night, unable to bear it any longer, I mustered up the courage to confront Mr. Jacobs. I knocked on his door, my hands trembling with nervous energy. He opened it slowly, his eyes dark and inscrutable. "I need to know what's going on," I blurted out, my voice quivering with fear. "Why are there sounds coming from the third floor? Who or what is up there?" Mr. Jacobs regarded me for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then, in a quiet voice, he said, "There used to be someone living on the third floor. A troubled soul, lost in the darkness of his own mind. He died in that apartment, but his spirit lingered, trapped between this world and the next." I felt a chill run down my spine as Mr. Jacobs continued his grim tale. The man who had once lived on the third floor had been tormented by his own demons, consumed by a madness that had driven him to unspeakable acts. And now, his restless spirit wandered the empty halls of the building, seeking solace in the echoes of the past. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Was this some elaborate hoax, a twisted prank to unsettle me? But as I looked into Mr. Jacobs' eyes, I saw a glimmer of truth and sorrow that sent a shiver down my spine. That night, as I lay in bed, the heavy boots pacing above me, the dragging sound, and the whispered words echoing through the vents, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, haunted by a presence from beyond the grave. I knew then that I had to unravel the mystery of the third floor, to confront the ghostly entity that lurked in the shadows of that forsaken building. And so, armed with nothing but courage and determination, I ventured into the darkness, ready to face whatever awaited me in the haunted depths of the third floor. As I climbed the creaking stairs, each step filled with trepidation, I heard the sounds growing louder, more insistent. And then, at the top of the staircase, I saw him, a spectral figure, his eyes empty and haunted, reaching out to me with spectral hands. "I know you're listening," he whispered, his voice a mere echo of the pain and anguish that had consumed him in life. And in that moment, I understood. The ghost of the third floor was not a malevolent spirit seeking harm or revenge. He was a lost soul, trapped in a cycle of torment and longing, reaching out for someone to hear his story, to bear witness to the darkness that had consumed him. I extended my hand towards him, a gesture of compassion and understanding, and as our fingertips touched, a blinding light filled the hallway, erasing the shadows and the whispers, dispelling the ghostly presence that had haunted the building for so long. And then, in the silence that followed, I felt a sense of peace descend upon me, a closure that had eluded the restless spirit of the third floor. As I descended the stairs, the building seemed lighter, the air clearer, as if the ghostly echoes of the past had finally found release. The next day, Mr. Jacobs was gone, his apartment empty, a faint trace of sadness lingering in the vacant rooms. But I knew that he had played his part in helping me uncover the truth of the third floor, in guiding me towards a resolution that had brought peace to a troubled soul.